We continue on Smile Jamaica this Monday morning. Haiti, Chile recently, and up to yesterday, this morning, Turkey, where some 60 people were killed in an earthquake there. I think the scale was 5.7. All of that has led us to look inward and wonder about our own infrastructure. When you think about the earthquake in Haiti, over 220,000 dead. Chile up to about 800 people dead, and obviously the difference there is the level of infrastructure. I think since it was almost the biggest earthquake we've ever had or ever recorded. So what about our own infrastructure? What about New Kingston, downtown, those tall buildings? What about even your own home? Is it built to withstand an earthquake? Is it built to a recognizable standard? To talk to us more about Jamaica's physical infrastructure, Omar Sweeney, Vice President of the Jamaica Institute of Engineers, and DaCosta, Chairman of the Building Code Committee here in Jamaica. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if you could just answer all of those questions, please, one time. Save me having to ask anymore. Omar, what about our present infrastructure? Is it up to a decent standard? Would it withstand a major earthquake? Do we know or not what level of or what strength of infrastructure we have?
Well, the main thing, Simon, is that we have not really been able to take stock of our current infrastructure because we have been operating on the 1908 building code, which was established shortly after the 1907 earthquake, which destroyed Kingston. And so since then, the Jamaica Institution of Engineers has been working to develop a new building code and get it passed into law.
Since 1907?
Well, there's actually a building code that was done in 1983, but it was never passed into law. It just remains as a policy document. So it's difficult for us to say what the stock of the infrastructure is in terms of strength.
Sorry, the 83 revision is not law, and therefore does it guide engineers or is it ignored?
Engineers are allowed to basically use any number of codes that are available to them. But it is the 1908 building code that is actually the law which you must guide by. And you can understand certainly that modern day practices like steel, reinforced buildings are not, covered in that code. And so one has to look into the market, the international market as an engineer to see what codes are available that will, be able to advise you on modern day techniques. So what we're trying to do is with a new building code, which was completed in 2009, the technical work has been completed by the Jamaica Institution of
building code, please.
This. I get it.
Because I didn't think an earthquake would have shit that.
Mr. DaCosta, when I see buildings are being built, you see one bag of steel.
Right.
Isn't that good?
It's good if the steel is in the right place, if it's the right type of steel, if it has the right tensile strength, if it's connected to the other steel appropriately, and so on. All this is covered in the building code. Just to follow up on the point that Omar was making, there was a study done which showed that 70% of the building, this study was done by USAID a few years ago, that 70% of the buildings in Jamaica are unengineered, which means that they haven't had the benefit of expert technical advice during their construction.
Are we talking commercial buildings or commercial?
All buildings. All buildings. That would include a lot.
House and say, that's good enough for me.
That would include a lot of households. Commercial buildings tend to be properly engineered because of the size and because of the use that they're going to be put to. Professional engineers, registered engineers tend to get involved in that construction, but many other buildings don't benefit from that. A building code has to be updated on a frequent basis. For example, after the hurricane in Florida, Hurricane Andrew in 1991, the building code came out 2 years later. They did a retrospective study, and they found that if the building standards that were in that code were available before the hurricane, 60% of the damage could have been avoided.
But Engineer Dr. Wayne Reed, who is from JIE, says, and I quote, the country's physical infrastructure is in dismal shape. You said you're not certain what kind of shape we're in. He said dismal shape.
Well, can I say something about that? Because Dr. Reed was also not only speaking to the strength of the infrastructure, he was also speaking about the capacity. He was speaking about the fact that the infrastructure also has been there for 50 years plus and not been upgraded to meet the needs of this modern...
Or maintained.
Right,
or maintained.
So what about our bridges and stuff? They would have been built before Simon, which is a long...
They would have been built long ago, and they would have benefited from the engineering technology at the time they were built.
At the time?
Yes. But as to the maintenance of the bridges and the upgrading of the bridges, I think that's some of the point that Dr. Reed was alluding to.
So we're in trouble there, too?
I think we are in trouble.
But if your committee has been in place since 2003?
Yes.
We are now 7 years on.
Yes.
What, just meet and have cookies and milk, or you getting anywhere?
Good question. This committee, it's all voluntary work. This committee wasn't paid to do anything. As a matter of fact, the project started by me personally raising funds.
You're doing it wrong. You should have waited for a relatively mild earthquake. Then you get about, what's the going rate for somebody who had a committee in Jamaica? 15 million or so? What's wrong with you?
Well, but we saw the need, so we raised money from the private sector, and we started the technical work of reviewing the building code. And the Bureau of Standards came on board and assisted us with the effort.
Omar, what are you going to do?
Well, I wanted to say that the JIE, we've been operating on the theme of engineering wealth through productivity. And we built that on four main things. One is to enforce the business of engineering registration, right, and the use of registered engineers in the design of buildings. Two is to promulgate the code in terms of, getting it passed into law and advising like the parish councils and private firms that this is the document to be used. And the third thing is to ensure that the JIE, raises the profile of the JIE to the public so they know that there's a body out there that governs this thing and makes sure that, we're able going forward to have the type of infrastructure that we know will keep us.
So you are an engineer.
Yes.
When you go to build a building, do you build it to, or if the owner of the building says, listen, it's 1908 and it's I only need one piece of steel, and you need 4, what do you do?
Well, that's why you hire a registered engineer, because an engineer understands the practice and understands the code is a set of standards. That's basic. It's a guide.
Right.
And so an engineer would be able to use the guide. Sometimes even with the code, you can step out and go beyond what the code requires.
Yeah,
because
but I want to bypass the code. I only want to use one piece of steel.
Not with a registered engineer.
I have no money.
Not with a registered engineer, because something like that can cause a code of conduct, and the engineer can be disciplined for doing something.
So
that's why we need the law.
So when I'm going to build, I call an engineer.
Yes.
And I say, Bridget, I want a 3-story house. What I must do? And he will tell me what to do.
Yes, you call somebody who can read and understand the code and who understand the implications of shortcuts.
And so on?
Architects serve a different role.
The architect and say, Bridget, draw a house to me, and then I go and go to the contractor and then go and put the bricks on top of the steel.
The architect will bring an engineer into the picture.
Okay.
Yes.
Particularly if it's a more complex structure.
All right. So you agree with Dr. Reed? We're in dismal shape, or we are, right?
Dr. Reed didn't build a lot of the buildings around the place.
Not that
I'm sure he designed a few.
I like his every word.
But I'm sure he's also speaking of those that he didn't know about.
Okay.
He went on to say, by the way, that the country's...
Dr. Reed.
Yeah, Dr. Reed. He said the country's physical infrastructure is in dismal shape, not different from its current financial status or moral shape.
That's all like weird.
We're a developing country, and we understand that, but I think we just have to know where we are. That's important.
All right. Omar Sweeney, Vice President, Jamaica Institution of Engineers, and DaCosta, Chairman of the Building Code Committee. We take a break. Earl Maxam will be at Simon when we come back. Soon come.